Hey guys, what's going on? This is going to be my fairly quick review on GreedFall, latest game by Spiders. Just completed the game earlier today, clocking in at just a little around 35 hours. So I play the game on extreme difficulty, which is the hardest difficulty, and I started off playing as a mage archetype. The other archetypes you could play as are basically a warrior or a gun user. There's two-handed weapons, single-handed weapons, guns, as well as you can use like bombs and things like that. So yeah, basically, let's just go ahead and go down some of the line. Like the story with the game, I think it's in between serviceable and really good. It's pretty tropey, I would say, in terms of the story, but there are so many things interwoven within the story and the intricacies of it that actually it makes it still very interesting. The game utilizes a faction system. There's basically 3 major cities in the game, but there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 major factions, however. There's the 3 city factions, there's the native peoples faction, and there's also 2 other factions. And that's cool, so you can up your faction levels with both of all these guys and that kind of stuff. And it is important. It does make a difference in the game as what your faction levels are. There's a lot of side quests. If you like side content at all, this game's right up your alley. There's plenty of it. And also, all your companions have their own side quest stories. And there are 5 companions in the game. Basically, all of them will fulfill an archetype of a class archetype. Whether you got your tank, your healer, your caster, your ranged, your like melee DPS, they got you covered in that department. A minor complaint, however, with the companions is that you can't change their class type. What they are is what they are, and they level up with you, so you can't reallocate their points, so you can't make like the mage actually learn how to use plate armor or heavy armor or like two-handed weapons. You can't do any of that, so that kind of is a bummer. Also, you can't control them in combat, but that wasn't really too much of a problem for me. I just thought it was a little interesting due to games like Dragon Age where you can. But overall, all the questing content, there's also things called contracts in the game. Those are really, really cool. You just kind of like, every time you get up to like an encampment or, I don't think there actually are any of the cities, but there's a lot of them in like encampments that you can find in villages and things like that. And they just give you little contracts, very simple stuff, but you get really good rewards from that, whether it be money, experience being the best. Sometimes you get gear from it, which is really cool. There's also a lot of other hidden little things throughout the world. I didn't even get everything, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Now let's talk about the combat. So this is going to be from my perspective as a caster type, but this actually is one of my bigger complaints with the game. The combat was pretty monotonous for me. For the most part, I really only used the starting ability, which is called Shadow Missiles. Basically is magic missiles or something like that. And there's also just not that many spells. So if that's counted as a spell, there's that spell. You have a Fury bar, and when you can use your Fury instead of your mana to cast like an empowered missile. That's another spell. You have a single target mez, basically. If you're like a crowd control ability, you can eventually get an AoE crowd control ability, and then there is an AoE damaging ability. And these are all for more of offensive spells, I guess. There's also a heal spell and a shield armor buff spell as well. So I guess that's like, what, 7 spells? It's still not really a lot, especially, like I said, the main one you're going to be using for damage is just the magic missiles, which is the thing you start with in the very beginning of the game. It's a lot of that and a lot of dodging. I mean, it flowed really well. Once you get your companions strong enough, they're doing work. You know, the tank can tank, the damage can do damage. It's pretty cool. I don't know. I thought that was pretty good. Like I said, the main thing with the problem with the combat was it was pretty generic and pretty much the same throughout the entire playthrough. The other complaint would be the leashing in the game. The leashing mechanic is could use a little work. A lot of games utilize the leashing mechanic so mobs don't get caught behind terrain and things like that, which makes sense. But the moment you leave their radius of where you can fight them, basically imagine it like there's a mob here, and then there's a circle around where that mob is, and if the mob leaves the edge of that circle, it resets. As soon as it hits the reset, mob goes instantly full health, and you can't attack it until it goes back to where it started. This can also work in your favor, but I would have liked to have seen something a little more along the lines of maybe it would start to walk back, there'd be like a threat meter, and once the threat meter filled up, then it would regenerate all of its HP. Excuse me. Something like that would have been pretty nice, but it is what it is. Next, let's talk about game performance. So, when I first started playing the game, I actually thought the game was very poorly optimized. When I was streaming the game, I was getting like 20 FPS. Yikes. Then I did a little tweaking because I realized, I'm like, well, what if I load the game up when I'm not streaming? 120, 140, 150 FPS, no problem. I'm like, okay. So then I realized it was something to do with my stream, how I was outputting it through the stream. And yeah, my computer's not amazing. I have a 6700K processor and a 1080 Ti graphics card, which I guess is still decent. And game ran like butter. Overall, the graphics in the game are pretty phenomenal, I would say, with the exception of lip syncing. There's a few things with the character models that maybe they could use some work. The teeth, for one, a little questionable. But like the landscapes, the lighting, the scenery, really, really good. Really enjoyed that stuff. The voice acting, while the lip syncing was pretty bad, the voice acting, however, very good. Very, very good. And of course I read my notes wrong. I meant to talk about also the loot and the gear systems, the RPG systems within the game, and these are pretty generic RPG systems. You have, everybody has gear, you have headpiece, chest piece, gloves, boots. Some of the characters can utilize cloaks and necklaces. Your character can utilize all of these things. Plenty of loot throughout the game, and it uses a tier system. The gray, like there's gray, green, blue, purple, and yellow for like the highest tier of stuff. I'm a fan of that. I like it. It's Diablo-esque style. I think it's pretty cool. There's loot everywhere. Okay, and on top of that, there is crafting. The crafting is a little unique because you can't craft your own gear, but you can craft upgrades. You can upgrade all your gear. Unless it specifically says it can't be upgraded. Usually that's only on weapons and unique items, which is the highest rarity anyway, so it generally doesn't need to be upgraded. There's, let's see, skills and abilities. So you start as a mage archetype, but you can move into the other archetypes if you wanted. That's all up to you. You can build your character pretty much any way if you wanted. I pretty much filled up all of the mage skills and then started in the guns. By the time I ended the game, I was pretty much like 99.9% all mage anyway. But yeah, there's your attributes: strength, agility, endurance, vigor, that kind of stuff. And then there's other things like intuition, charisma. These are used for things like dialogue options, which are pretty very handy. Or there's also certain like terrain things that you can't traverse. Oh, your vigor's not high enough. You can't climb this this really tall rock side. But if you had high enough vigor, you can climb it and maybe get a shortcut or access areas that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. So that's cool. All in all, I would say this game, if you like the Dragon Age games, if you like Witcher, things like this, you're gonna like this game. If you don't mind a little bit of jank. This game definitely has got some jank. All in all, I'd probably give this game around like a solid 8 out of 10. Probably right around there. And pretty much, as soon as I started playing the game, I was already kind of judging it as like in between a 7.5 and an 8.5. And by the time I ended the game, I'm gonna give it an 8. So yeah, that's my quick rundown review of GreedFall. Feel free to leave any comments down below, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I don't know how that all works on YouTube. New to this thing. And yeah, I'll be doing more of this stuff with games in the future. Alright guys, see you later.